Good evening, everybody. Gather around and we'll go ahead and start the program. Good evening. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff of DAP Health, welcome to tonight's celebrations. It's a precious gift to be here tonight together, and we know Annette Bloch valued togetherness, her family, her friends, and this community. I believe in this community. After all, DAP's history is a lesson in the power of our community. Whether it be homophobia, racism, sexism, HIV, or COVID, we believe in challenging the status quo when members of our community live in distress or suffer from discrimination. We believe our community can do better, and we will. Everything we do at DAP Health leverages lessons learned and expands upon the power of this community for the greater good of everybody, period. DAP's vision drove Annette Bloch to champion the expansion of our humanitarian healthcare campus. Tonight, we celebrate several big steps towards actualizing this goal. I can see the day not too far off when those suffering in our community have access to all the social determinants of health through DAP's future campus and our partners in achieving this vision. I can see this community housing the homeless, providing medical care to those who cannot afford the cost of today's healthcare system. We are decreasing mortality and morbidity, improving the lives of our community members, and decreasing the cost of healthcare. When Annette and I talked of achieving this vision for the Coachella Valley, she'd always take my hand and she'd say, "David, I want you to replicate this model throughout this country." And I could just imagine what a driving force she was in her family's own attainment of their dreams. Tonight, those who loved Annette, and I'm one of those, gather here to honor her memory and cement her legacy at DAP Health. Our history's taught us when one of our community members is experiencing homelessness, it becomes exceedingly difficult to gain access to healthcare and adhere to treatment. Housing is one of the strongest predictors of good health. And this evening, we also celebrate the commencement of the construction of Vista Sunrise 2 with our partners, Coachella Valley Housing Coalition in Riverside County. And that's irrepressibly positive attitude. Her drive to make the most out of life was nothing short of amazing. Like all of us, she was given one life to live. And with tremendous awareness and intent, she made the most out of every interaction. She too taught us invaluable lessons that will shed light on our path for decades to come. And for that, we remain forever grateful to her. Please join me in giving a warm desert welcome to Annette's daughter, Linda Lyon.
Boy, that was warm. Can you hear me okay? Is this okay? Okay, good. So my mother, Annette Faye Modell Bloch, was born and grew up in Philadelphia. She had an older sister, 7 years older. Her dad was a traveling salesman. He would leave every Monday, going on the road selling lamps, and come back on Friday. And every Sunday night before he left, he and my grandmother would sit down. She would make a list of everything that she would need for the week, and then he would leave her that much money. She did not drive, so once or twice a week, my mom would walk to the library and pick out a book for her mother to read. And from that time on, my mom, throughout her life, was a lover of books. When my mom turned 16 on her birthday, she met my dad. He had a date with one of her best friends who wanted to drop by and give my mom a birthday present. And sometime later, my mom and my dad happened to be double dating, and my dad and his date got in an argument and decided to switch dates. And that's how my mom and dad started to date. He ended up breaking up with my mom. She was furious. They did not talk. And after 6 months of absolute silence, he called her from Kansas City out of the blue and asked her to marry him. The crazy part is she said yes. So at 19, she moved from her parents' house in Philadelphia to an apartment with my father in Kansas City. She knew no one. She was a very traditional housewife. She had my sister Barbara, then my sister Nancy, and then me. My dad was a bond salesman for a brokerage house, and on the side, he was an efficiency expert. And one of the jobs he had with that was at Hellsberg jewelry store, Hellsberg Diamonds. And Mr. Hellsberg really liked him and offered him a job with a lot of money. And it was my mom who counseled him not to take it because she felt that he really needed to be his own boss. He had 2 brothers. He was the baby. And his brothers, when they got back from World War II, they started a small business helping other small businesses. They did mainly bookkeeping, but they had a laundry list of things, including window dressing, which if you knew them and knew their taste level, you would know that that was really weird. And they didn't do very well. So my older uncle decided to go back and finish law school. And my other uncle put an ad in the paper for an associate. And the only response he got to that ad was his mother, my grandmother, who called and said, "Hank, hire Dickie." So he hired my dad, and the 2 of them started and built H&R Block. And my dad was I think you could say, pretty frugal person. We didn't have a lot early on, and like most of my parents' friends belonged to a country club, and we didn't because my parents didn't feel like we had enough money, and they never wanted to live beyond their means. So when H&R Block went public and when the company grew, my mother never got over her great good fortune. When my dad was 52, he was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer and given 3 months to live. Fortunately, through a friend of his, he met a doctor who cured him, and with a lot of support from my mom. And when he was cured, the 2 of them started a foundation and devoted the rest of their lives to helping the next person who got cancer. In 2004, well, thank you. Yeah, a lot of the articles afterwards said that they gave to cancer research. They really didn't give anything to cancer research, but they did a lot of innovative programs that weren't being done at the time just to help that person navigate through and give them hope to become a cancer survivor. So 26 years later, when my dad did pass away, not from cancer, but from heart failure, I really didn't know how my mom was going to go. I mean, here she was with her parents and then with my father for almost 60 years. But she really came into her own. She loved life. She loved people. She lived large, but she always remembered something that my grandmother, her mother-in-law said. When my mom came to Kansas City, she didn't know anybody, and she became very close to my dad's mother. They had lunch together twice a week. And one time early on, my grandmother said, "Annette, I think Dick is going to do well. I think he's going to make a lot of money. And you need to remember that to those who have plenty, there's a responsibility to give back." And my mom never forgot that. Really, her greatest pleasure in life, besides being my mom, actually, I think her greatest pleasure really was her family. She loved her family, and she's the reason that we are all close. But next to that, her greatest pleasure was being able to make a difference in people's lives through philanthropy. And she felt strongly that people should be able to have good medical care without having to be wealthy, and that they should be able to do it in nice surroundings. So the building that is dedicated in her name, she would be so proud and so happy. I just wish she were here tonight with us. I mean, maybe she's looking down, but she would love to see everyone who is here. And I just know she would. When she was out here, she got involved with the museum, but then her good friends, Barbara Keller and Terry Ketover, introduced her to, back then it was the Desert AIDS Project. And she adored David Brinkman. I mean, who wouldn't? And she was so impressed with what Desert AIDS Project was doing and how they were doing their work. So everything that has come to be just seems so right and so wonderful. I really want to thank David for arranging this tonight, and thank you, all of you here who have come to celebrate my mom. And just, I wish this night could last a lot longer because it's been so wonderful. But what I would like to do now, well, I was going to do something else, but wait, I feel like I'm channeling my mom. And David was talking about how housing is key and so important, and they're starting this campaign for that. And I think I would like to say that our foundation would like to be a part of that. And I would like to pledge $1 million from our foundation for that. You can give me a hug. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce two of my mom's closest friends out here, Terry Ketover and Mark Adams.
So we're not alcoholics. They said we had to bring our drinks up here.
Guess who's from Miami, Florida?
Yeah, right.
I have to go off script for 1 second and say, Linda, you did channel your mom.
Yeah.
Annette would get so excited about a new project, something that David board put together, an idea that she would. Sometimes I thought we should hold her down because I thought she would just levitate. her hand would go up and she'd go, I'll give $1 million. She would be beyond proud and happy, Linda. Thank you. And as a former board member of districts, thank you. You'll forgive us if we're reading, but part of our scripts were kind of written for us, so we haven't.
You start there.
But this is me. Well, I can't turn the page.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. You just heard from Annette's real daughter, Linda, and now you're going to hear from Annette's faux sister, me. From the day that we first met 20 years ago, when Bart and I moved into our new house across the street from Annette, and she showed up on the front porch with a huge bag. And inside the bag, she said, here's dinner and some food for tomorrow, because nobody has anything to eat in the house on their first day. Well, when she showed up with that bag and with that smile, it endeared her to me forever. And her generous heart and giving spirit made her a sister and a role model for me. See,
That was it? Oh, shit. Okay, sorry. Okay, we missed the first page. You're Terry Ketover.
Oh, hi, I'm
And-
Terry Ketover.
And I'm Mark Adams. And by the way, Annette introduced us and we became also, I'm not going to say sisters, but kind of, right? So,
Okay, so you skipped a page.
yeah, no, I need
This
your,
is so professional.
I need your gloves in
Excuse us.
here.
Okay,
Okay, and I'm Mark Adams. So, Linda, that's amazing. I mean, one of the great pleasures of knowing Annette was to meet her family. And I knew this was going to happen to me, and her kids, and to get to know Andre in such a great and special way. I met Annette and Dick a long time ago at a dinner party at Peggy Craven's house. So, you know, it was a really long time ago. And briefly, and we didn't really connect then. And, you know, many years later, we met at a museum function. And, you know, Annette loved the museum. It was so special to her. She and I were both on the board at the time. And we just had this sort of infatuation at first sight. And that was 16 plus years ago. And when I met them, you know, she confided in me, her budding relationship. And, you know, and that was in the closet. She knew very well what it was like for many of us here tonight to be in the closet. She adored and loved Andre. And she said, "You've got to meet my daughters." And it was just, you know, she's probably the most important friendship of my life. And I suspect will always be that. So those memories will reside with me safely forever. Of course, I'm going to be the guy that cries. So
you go right ahead.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, we do have a job tonight
We do.
besides to reminisce, and that's to give you a little history and bring you back to the present and to the future. About 10 years ago, DAP Health, which was then known as Desert AIDS Project, recognized that in order for the organization to meet the ever-growing local demand for healthcare in all its facets, that it would need to greatly expand its physical facilities. The executive staff and the board of directors, which I was proud to be a part of at that time, set out to investigate our various options.
Then board member Carolyn Caldwell, who at the time was CEO of Tenet Healthcare, is the one who came up with the inspired scenario whereby DAP would simply purchase the structure neighboring the Barbara Keller Building, a medical facility owned by the county of Riverside. The board agreed that would be the most expedient solution. There were only two not insignificant hurdles: money and the fact that the building was not then currently for sale.
But whether, I got it,
You're right here, honey.
I know,
Yeah.
but I'm getting ready to turn the page.
Oh.
This is like being up with your husband. Okay.
Can't be that bad. Love Bart, love Bart.
As they say, where there's a will, there's a way. And especially when you have a team like Carolyn Caldwell, Supervisor Manny Perez, and wonderful humanitarian Annette Bloch. long story short, this dynamic trio got it done. Supervisor Perez facilitated. Annette donated $3 million, and Carolyn and Tenet matched that gift.
Today, this building's renovated footprint stands at approximately 50% of what it will become. And so far, DAP has gone from being able to serve 2,000 patients a year to a capacity of 10,000 patients. I know you can all do that math. It's an enormous accomplishment. As a fivefold growth, even more impressive when 2 additional clinics are completed. That already astounding number will grow to potentially 25,000 men and women served annually.
So on this very special evening, it's our great honor and profound pleasure to officially designate this newest structure on the DAP campus, which truly would not exist without the contribution of one special angel who is sorely missed tonight, the Annette Bloch CARE Building.
Please join us in raising a glass to Annette Bloch, DAP Health, and the Annette Bloch CARE Building. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening, everyone. I'm inspired, and I appreciate the words of Terry and Mark, and thank you for sharing. And I especially appreciate the words of Linda. Thank you for sharing as well, Linda. That was beautiful. Your mom might not be here physically, but I felt it by your words. And thank you for everything that you've done and that you'll continue to do for DAP and your family as well. I'm Supervisor Victor Manuel Perez, and it's an honor to be here. And quite frankly, where's David? David Brinkman. I know I saw him somewhere. There he is. Hey, David. I remember when I first got appointed. You remember? We had a meeting right away. And that conversation was about this building. And it was also about potentially in the future having housing. I'm just happy that we made it happen. And I want to thank you for your advocacy on behalf of everybody so that everyone can have access to healthcare and now as well housing. Can I have the staff and the board members of DAP please stand up or raise your hand, and let's give them all a round of applause, because you're the folks that make it happen. Can I ask my county staff that helped as well? I know I saw Mike earlier, and I know Greg is here. They're somewhere around here. Thank you so much. Any other county staff, thank you so much for the good work you're doing as well. And to the folks of the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition, those that have been there before and those that are there today, thank you so much for your great work as well. You know, see the sign behind me? Housing is also healthcare. That's right. You know, it's not just about visiting a physician. It's also about, and you know, dealing with doctor's appointments and therapy sessions and tests and treatments and medication. But it's also about the social determinants of health. And you heard that concept earlier today from David. And so it is also about wraparound services, behavioral health services, for example. Or it is also about housing. and ensuring that people have somewhere to sleep, especially if they need to see a doctor and they have nowhere to go. It's also about potentially helping that individual find a job so they can take care of themselves and live with dignity and with pride. You know, for me, DAP is very special, and every single FQHC is very special. For those folks that don't know, I come from the FQHC world. I come from the community health center movement, if you will, because I do think it is a movement. It's about bringing social justice to our communities even closer by projects like the one we're talking about today. And about 20 years ago, I used to be a researcher for the California Institute for Rural Studies. And having the background of the son of immigrant farm workers, my parents meeting while picking grapes out in Imperial County, then here in the Coachella Valley, and then eventually out in the Central Valley, I thought it was my calling to do what I could to learn a little bit more about how we can provide access to healthcare and housing to farm workers. So through CIRS, the California Institute for Rural Studies, I became a researcher throughout the Central Valley. And the first time I ever saw this kind of model was out there at a small location called Cutler, Orosi. And there you had housing for farm workers. They also had a community center, a daycare center, a healthcare center, a library, and a park, all in one. I'm happy to see that that model will be replicated here, and we're going to continue to build those out, right, David? We're going to continue to build those out everywhere. Now, my role as your county supervisor has been one in which I've tried to shepherd these efforts along the way with David and others. Just want to say that I'm happy about the contribution that the county has provided, a land donation in the amount of $2 million, as well as vouchers to help subsidize housing for folks. Services that every individual, no matter who they are or where they come from, receive those services. Once again, I want to thank the Bloch family. Annette is with us. Thank you so much, Annette. I also just want to applaud all your efforts for this great work that we see here today. Lastly, I have the pleasure of introducing Nicholas Snow, the host of PromoHomo.tv, a DAP client, longtime client, founder, and executive producer. Thank you so much, everyone.
Good evening. I'm deeply honored and a bit overwhelmed, actually, to have been invited by David Brinkman to be with you today. The common bond which unites all of us is our collective commitment to making the world a better place. And I'm so grateful for your mother. Thank you. The reality is that without you, without the people who stand behind DAP Health, I might not even be here. For I am one of the people for whom you have made the world a better place. Thank you. 525,600 minutes. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because you're used to hearing it like this. 525,600 minutes. 525,000 moments so dear. In Rent, Jonathan Larson asked, how do you measure measure a decade. On my mind and in my heart these days, now that I can see beyond the desperation of trying to survive just another day, is how do I measure a decade, especially the last decade, the one that transpired after I thought I would no longer be here, the one that may have never happened, for me anyway. The last 4 decades did not happen for so many people we still carry in our hearts. In the early 1980s, knowing and loving people who lived and died of AIDS forever changed the trajectory of my story. They taught me life is precious, and my life may be very short. They challenged me to make every moment count, to make my life matter, to make it all mean something. I realized my calling was to live and to tell my truth, to shine my light into darkness and to try to change the world, and I started and never stopped. I gave my first on-camera television interview as an openly gay man as early as 1986, maybe even earlier. I have attended ACT UP and Queer Nation demonstrations, celebrated in pride parades, and taken my next step on National Coming Out Day and every day for decades. My first awareness of this sacred space that has evolved into DAP Health was in the early 2000s when I lived in Palm Springs for a few years. In my capacity as a journalist, I came to know people who worked here. I came to know, love, and advocate for DAP. I moved away, and in 2007, 8,000 miles away from here, my storyline took a sharp turn. After decades of being on the front lines in one way or another in the fight against HIV and AIDS, because of a rare slip in my safer sex practices, I became HIV positive. In retrospect, I realized that isolation, loneliness, and depression were part of the equation. I did what I could to keep it together for the next few years, but my world was slipping away from me. In 2011, I hatched a plan to return to the United States, to Palm Springs, for 2 reasons. The first, a good friend of mine had a sofa I could sleep on if I needed it. The second, I needed to become a client of DAP, to rebuild a foundation upon which I could build a future. Just over 10 years ago, on the edge of homelessness, with no health care, very little money, no car, and very few possessions, I stepped into that building looking for a way to survive, for help, a way to rediscover my reason for living. It was my goal, my hope, to move into the Vista Sunrise Apartments by April 25th, 2012, my birthday. And being all about creative visualization, I had visited the property on numerous occasions and had a very clear idea of where I wanted to be on the property, with a spectacular, expansive view of the gorgeous mountains rising from the desert floor. Those gorgeous mountains. Fast forward, and the 10th anniversary of my move into the Vista Sunrise Apartments is this April, the same month in which I will turn 60, at the end of a decade that may have never happened, for me anyway. But you see, it did. I'm still standing over 6 feet of snow right here. David knew this, I didn't. The people that produced this event knew this, I didn't. But this is what brings tonight full circle. On Wednesday, December 29th, I accessed a COVID test via a nurse visit at the Green Clinic after traveling for the holidays. On Saturday, January 8th, I picked up boxes of groceries right over there, a result of DAP's monthly collaboration with Find Food Bank. On Friday, February 4th, I went to LabCorp inside the Barbara Keller Love Building for my blood draw in preparation for my routine follow-up appointment with my primary care physician, Dr. David Morris. By the way, I knew and loved Barbara Keller. She was my champion and holds a big place in my heart. And I was at the Steve Chase Humanitarian Awards the night Annette Bloch gave $3 million to DAP, and also with some of you and Mrs. Bloch on the corner of Vista Chino and Sunrise when we dedicated the Cancer Care Center in her name. This month, Wednesday, February 9th, I had my annual visit with Dr. Daniel Joe in the dental clinic, and I scheduled my biannual teeth cleaning because I've gotten good at being camera ready. The next day, I saw Dr. Morris in the Green Clinic to review the consistently fabulous results of my blood panel. I always hope that Dr. Morris doesn't have a patient scheduled right after me, because we have become great friends and I cherish every moment that I have with him. I'm so grateful to have a car now, but I didn't need it for any of those appointments. My biggest travel time is 5 minutes of casual strolling. One of my most significant primary relationships during the first year of the pandemic, seriously, was with my therapist at the time, Dr. Jill Gover, via Zoom, and she's standing right over there, pretty in pink. So it was wonderful to bump into her the other day, IRL, in real life, when we both happened to be out for a lunchtime walk. Almost precisely 10 years ago, in March of 2012, I received notice I could move into the Vista Sunrise Apartments and was invited to complete the paperwork. Upon leaving the office, it dawned on me I had envisioned being in the apartment by my birthday. I moved in April 4th, so I woke up in those apartments right over there, April 25th, my 50th birthday. 525,600 minutes. 525,000 moments so dear. Times 10. After moving in, I wrote in my journal, which has become this book. Once again, legions of angels had swooped in. You, all of you, and everyone who stands behind DAP Health are among my legions of angels. Thank you for my home, and thank you for my life. Vista Sunrise, too, like most great things at DAP Health, is the result of incomparable teamwork. And one of the team's most invaluable members is their building partner, the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition. Please welcome that nonprofit's interim executive director, Pedro S.G. Rodriguez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Nicholas, for such an inspiring story. Just one clarification. I'm now the permanent executive director of the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition, we're a nonprofit developer of affordable housing. Since 1982, we have built housing for people in all walks of life, including farm workers, migrant and retired farm workers, large families, seniors, individuals with development disabilities, homeless veterans, and individuals living with HIV/AIDS and other chronic illnesses. About 20 years ago, I think we were the first developer to build a project for people with AIDS. Our founding executive director, John Mealy, saw the need for this type of housing for people with AIDS. And I think we partnered with DAP and we built a 39-unit housing development in Ketover City. Known for our innovative design and construction models, not to mention the development of prestigious award-winning complexes, we built more than 5,000 multi and single-family residences, making us the largest developer of affordable housing in Riverside County and one of the largest residential developers of any kind in the Coachella Valley. Nearly 2,900 rental units in 40 developments, including a 176-bed migrant farm workers community, have been completed or acquired in the last 40 years. All of us at CBAC are highly committed to our mission because access to affordable housing is one of California's, and particularly one of the Coachella Valley's greatest needs. When the opportunity to partner with DAP Health and Vista Sunrise 2 arose, and we came to truly understand the organization's campus model, we knew that future residents were going to enjoy the quality of life that very few people in disenfranchised communities in America are fortunate enough to enjoy. At this time, I'd like to recognize some of the board of directors that are here tonight and who have made our organization where it is today. Founding and current board member, Sylvia Montenegro, who after 40 years is still providing wisdom and knowledge to our organization. Thank you, Sylvia. Longtime board member, Dr. Inez Suarez. Former board member, actually DAP and CBAC, and former executive director, Julie Bornstein is here tonight. Our very own CBAC's multifamily development director, who unfortunately is not able to be here today, but she made everything possible to make this project happen, Marianne Ibarra. I would be remiss if I did not take this advantage of this opportunity to thank our partners in this worthwhile endeavor. And it really does take a village to get this type of development built. The California Tax Credit Allocation Committee, the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, California Municipal Finance Authority, a long-term partner of affordable housing under CBAC, the City of Palm Springs. Let's give them a big hand because they've been very supportive of County of Riverside Housing Authority. They're providing a Section 8 voucher. Like the supervisor said, almost $9 million in benefits. The Riverside County Behavioral Health, No Place Like Home Funds. State of California, No Place Like Home Funds. The Affordable Housing Program, sponsored by Wells Fargo Bank. The Low Income Investment Fund, pre-development loan. Wells Fargo Bank, they're providing the construction financing. Wells Fargo Affordable Housing Community Development Corporation, they're the investors. Our development team, architect, Interactive Design Corporation, engineer, Michael Baker, contractor, Sun Country Builders. And now, I think all that's left to do is to raise a glass in honor of the 60 future residents of Vista Sunrise 2. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you one of our very own Academy Award and Grammy nominated and Tony Award winning lyricist, director, and producer, David Sipple.
Good evening. I think they chose me alphabetically to wrap up the event. Thank you, Pedro. And what a beautiful crowd and what a beautiful evening this is. I'm truly honored to have been asked to close the night. I'd first like to thank all of you for being here and also express DAP Health's appreciation for every person who accepted the invitation to speak at the ceremony tonight. You are all very important parts of Annette's life, and you are all helping to burnish her legacy. and you are all investing in the future of DAP Health, whose longevity makes it one of the most successful healthcare organizations in this valley, one that is renowned and respected internationally, I might add. I was recently interviewed for an article designed as a tribute to Annette Bloch, which will appear in DAP's new glossy magazine. In that interview, I said that in addition to being an inspiring philanthropist, Annette was a real-life anti-MAME. She literally picked up my husband, Michael, and me at a cocktail party about 15 years ago. She said, "You're fun. I like fun people. Let's spend some time together." And we did, having many adventures and travels with her and her partner, Andre. We all had dinner a few weeks before she passed away. Although she was being treated for cancer, she was having a good day, and she was as vivacious, joyful, and upbeat as the day we met. Like we had done many times before, we closed the restaurant that night. Annette was an optimist and a fighter to the very end, and a role model of how to grab life with both hands and live it. She is sorely missed tonight, of course, and she will be until each of our respective flames have been extinguished. But she will live on forever through her massive contributions to DAP. And for that, I know we are all extremely grateful. Annette, quite simply, was a vibrant woman who wanted nothing but the best for everyone she loved and everyone who lived in her community. I'd like us to jointly recognize how fortunate we all are to have been a part of Annette's community. Because of her, life in the Coachella Valley is better for everyone who chooses to call our beloved desert home. Also, please join me for a moment of silence during which we can reflect on the gratitude we have for Annette, for DAP Health, and for the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition, and for being neighbors. Thank you and good night.